If you've made it this far, thank you for joining us in today's emotional journey. We'd love to know where are you watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. Your stories and thoughts mean the world to us. And don't forget to subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you won't miss tomorrow's powerful story. It might be the one that touches your heart the most. Until then, stay kind, stay brave, and keep believing in second chances. We'll see you in the next chapter. Ariana was only 26 when she learned the harshest lesson of her life: love isn't always enough. She was a rising fashion designer from Florida, filled with dreams and a heart that believed in forever. She had met Jackson at a local art fair when they were both still in college. He was charming, ambitious, and had a way of making her feel like she was the only woman in the world. For 4 years, they built memories, late-night takeouts while working on their dreams, road trips along the Florida coast, and whispered promises of a future together. Ariana believed in him, in them, but things started to shift. Jackson became more restless, more focused on climbing the social ladder than nurturing their relationship. Ariana could see the change in his eyes, how he lingered longer at networking events, how he flinched at the mention of a simple life, how he began chasing something she couldn't give: power. She never thought ambition could break a heart, but it did. One evening, as the golden sun dipped into the ocean, he told her the truth. He was leaving. Not because he didn't love her, but because love wouldn't pay the price of the life he wanted. He was marrying someone else. Her name was Claire. She came from old money. Her family owned a luxury hotel chain worth over $7 million. To Jackson, it wasn't just a marriage, it was a shortcut to everything he thought he deserved. And Ariana? She was left behind, shattered, and stunned, questioning every moment they'd shared, every promise he'd made. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was betrayal wrapped in a velvet box. No warning, no goodbye kiss, just a cold, calculated decision. The day Jackson walked out of her life, Ariana stood at the beach alone, her bare feet sinking into the wet sand, tears blending with the salty breeze. She watched the waves crash again and again, and she whispered to herself, "This will not be the end of me." And it wasn't. That night, Ariana packed her bags, booked a one-way ticket over 2,000 miles away, and left everything behind, every memory, every trace of him. She wasn't running from the pain. She was choosing to grow from it. She didn't know what awaited her in Las Vegas, but she knew what she had to leave behind in Florida. Love had let her down, but she was about to learn that self-worth could lift her higher than any man ever did. Las Vegas was nothing like Florida. The beaches were a place with neon lights, the ocean breeze with dry desert winds. But for Ariana, it wasn't about comfort, it was about survival. She arrived with 2 suitcases, $600 in her bank account, and a heart still bleeding from betrayal. She didn't know anyone. She didn't have a job. But she had something even more powerful, a decision she would never let Jackson's choice define her worth. The first few months were brutal. She slept on a friend of a friend's couch in a cramped apartment just off the strip. She worked back-to-back shifts as a retail assistant, folding clothes for 12 hours straight, barely making minimum wage. Her fingers blistered. Her feet ached. And every night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, whispering to herself, "You're not done. You're just getting started." What hurt most wasn't that Jackson left, it was how easily he moved on, how quickly he exchanged love for luxury. Meanwhile, Ariana was scraping by, building herself from the ground up, while he posted smiling photos beside his new wife, wrapped in designer clothes and fake promises. But pain has a strange way of shaping you. Ariana enrolled in night classes for fashion entrepreneurship. She used her weekends to sketch designs and learn how to pitch them. She cold called boutique owners, emailed manufacturers, begged for 10-minute meetings. She got rejected over and over, but each no only sharpened her. After a year of hustle, Ariana launched her own brand, Aria by Ariana, a line of sleek, powerful designs made for women who'd been underestimated. Just like her first online sale came from a woman in Denver, then another from Atlanta. Soon, influencers were tagging her on Instagram and local media caught on. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was rising by the end of year 2. She moved into her own studio apartment and hired her first assistant. Her annual income crossed $100,000. For the first time, she stood in front of a mirror and didn't see the girl Jackson left. She saw the woman he could never break, but success didn't erase the scars. It just proved they didn't control her. One night, standing on the rooftop of her building, Ariana looked out over the glittering skyline. The city was loud, chaotic, alive, just like her. She wasn't chasing revenge anymore. She wasn't trying to prove Jackson wrong. She was proving herself right, and in that moment, she understood. He gave her pain, but that pain gave her purpose. She didn't need him. She didn't even miss him. She had built something no one could take from her. Not anymore. 6 years had passed. Ariana was no longer the broken girl who arrived in Las Vegas with nothing but heartache and a dream. She was now the CEO of her own fashion label, featured in online magazines, invited to panels, flown out to cities she'd once only seen in movies. Her brand, Aria by Ariana, was making waves, and this time, she wasn't just surviving. She was thriving. And then it happened. It was a warm Thursday in September when she flew to Los Angeles to speak at a women's entrepreneurship conference. The crowd was electric. Hundreds of aspiring creators, businesswomen, and designers gathered. In one room, Ariana had just stepped off stage, her heart still pounding with adrenaline, when she heard someone say her name. Ariana? She turned and her breath caught Jackson. He was standing there, just a few feet away, looking like a ghost from a life she thought she'd buried. His once confident eyes now carried something else, regret. His smile was hesitant, like he wasn't sure he deserved to wear it. His designer suit looked sharp, but his posture was heavy, as if the weight of old choices had finally caught up to him. I almost didn't recognize you, he said quietly. Ariana didn't flinch. She had rehearsed this moment in her head 100 times. In some versions, she cried. In others, she walked away. But in real life, she simply met his gaze and said, "It's been a long time." They sat for coffee in the hotel lounge. The same Jackson who once traded her love for a $7 million empire now spoke of lawsuits, divorce papers, and a marriage that had collapsed under the pressure of appearances. Claire, his once perfect wife, had left him after a scandal that ruined their family's reputation. The hotel chain was sold off, and Jackson? He was working as a consultant, trying to rebuild what he could. "I thought about you," he admitted, eyes lowered. "A lot." Ariana sipped her coffee, calm, composed. "Never stopped regretting it," he added. There it was, the apology she once begged for in silence. But now, hearing it, it didn't shake her, it didn't heal her. Because she no longer needed closure from a man who threw her away for a price tag. "You didn't just walk away from me," she said, her voice steady. "You walked away from a future you didn't have the courage to build." Jackson looked stunned. "But thank you," she added, setting her cup down. "Because losing you was the beginning of everything I became." She stood, straightened her blazer, and left him there silent, unsure, and watching the woman he once abandoned walk away without a single trace of the girl he broke, this time. Ariana didn't look back. Jackson didn't give up. Over the next few weeks, he reached out texts, emails, even a handwritten letter delivered to her office. Ariana read none of them. She had nothing left to say. She had closed that chapter the moment she walked away from him in Los Angeles. But Jackson wasn't done. He showed up at one of her boutique pop-up events in San Diego. Standing outside the venue, in the middle of a bustling crowd, he looked out of place, like a relic from a forgotten story. When their eyes met, Ariana sighed, not out of anger, but from exhaustion. Some ghosts don't haunt you because of fear. They haunt you because they refuse to leave. "I just want to talk," he said, walking beside her as she moved behind the curtain for a break. She glanced at him. "Talking never used to be your strong suit." "I was a fool," he admitted, looking genuinely broken. "I thought money." would make me feel whole. But all it did was cost me the one person who ever believed in me. Ariana looked away. Not because she was tempted, but because she felt nothing. No anger, no heartbreak. Just silence where his name used to echo. "You're incredible," he said. "You built everything you once dreamed of. And I can't stop thinking about what we could have had." That was the moment it hit her. Jackson wasn't trying to win her back out of love. He was drawn to her light now that his world had gone dark. He missed the version of her who used to cheer for him, pray for him, fight for him. But that girl was gone, and she wasn't coming back. "I'm not your redemption story," Ariana replied, voice sharp but calm. "I didn't become this woman to prove anything to you. I became her because you left. Because you taught me exactly what I never want again." Jackson's face dropped. "You really don't feel anything?" She smiled faintly, tilting her head. "I feel relief." For years, she thought closure would come in the form of tears, maybe even one last embrace. But here it was, right in front of her, in the form of a man who once broke her, now desperate to piece together something you didn't deserve anymore. He offered to take her to dinner. She declined. He said he'd wait. She told him not to. And as she walked away again, there was no hesitation, no pain. Just power. Ariana didn't need validation. She didn't need revenge. She had already won. And nothing he could ever say would change that. Sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is not forgive, not fight, not scream. Sometimes the most powerful thing is to simply walk away with her head high and her heart intact. It had been 3 months since Ariana last saw Jackson. She had moved forward without a trace of him in her day-to-day life. Her brand was expanding into national department stores. She was scheduled to speak in Chicago, host a pop-up in Phoenix, and had just signed a deal with a major fashion retailer. She was living the life she once dreamed about on that couch in Vegas, with blisters on her hands and no air conditioning. But closure has a funny way of circling back. One afternoon, as she stepped into her studio, her assistant handed her a cream-colored envelope. No name, no return address. Just a familiar handwriting that sent a faint chill down her spine. Inside was a letter long, handwritten and raw. Jackson. He didn't ask for forgiveness this time. He didn't beg. Instead, he acknowledged the truth. That he had destroyed something beautiful out of fear and selfishness. That he had measured love against money, and only after losing both did he understand their worth. He wrote, "You were the best thing I never earned, and the only thing I truly regret losing." Ariana sat there for a while, the letter resting in her lap, sunlight pouring across the desk. And that's when she realized something she hadn't before. She had no anger left. No pain. What once cracked her open had made space for strength. What once burned had now forged her identity. The betrayal didn't define her, it refined her. She took out a pen, paused, then put it down. There was nothing more to say. The next day, she stood on stage in front of hundreds of women at a leadership summit. Bright lights, applause, all eyes on her. And she told a version of her story, not with names, not with bitterness, but with honesty. "I loved someone once," she said, her voice steady, "who chose something else over me. At the time, I thought that meant I wasn't enough, but it never did. It just meant they weren't meant to stay." The room was silent. She smiled and continued, "Every betrayal has a cost, but so does healing. And I chose to pay the price for peace, not revenge. I chose to grow, not shrink." When the crowd stood in ovation, Ariana felt it. Not pride, not ego, but clarity. Jackson's chapter was over. Fully, finally, and without ceremony. She no longer needed an apology, a reason, or a resolution. She had created her own, because sometimes the strongest closure isn't a final conversation. It's the ability to live beautifully without one. And as Ariana walked off that stage, heels clicking confidently on the floor, she whispered a truth. To herself she wished she'd known years ago. I was never the one who lost. If this story touched something deep inside you, if you've ever been broken, rebuilt, or walked away stronger than you ever thought possible, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever loved someone who didn't choose you? Have you ever had to let go in order to grow? Drop your story or even just a few words in the comments below. You never know, your voice might help someone else heal too. Let's build a space where strength, growth, and second chances are celebrated. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story like this one. There's another powerful chapter waiting for you tomorrow, and trust us, it's one you won't want to miss. Thank you for being part of this journey. Now it's your turn. What's the one thing you would say if you finally got the closure you deserved? We're listening.